Jeff. We'll be in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, if you have your Bibles. I am also excited for the potluck on June 22nd. I was just talking to the greeting team about the different things. I like to cook, we like to cook, and so, as Jeff said, really excited to judge everyone's cooking skills. And like he said, there will be a registration because we don't want 15 mac salads. Right? There'll be a way to disperse everything. We'll be in Ecclesiastes chapter 5. We're going to dip into chapter 6 as well. So we're going to be covering kind of a large chunk of Scripture. It's very rich. I'm not going to read through it all because we might be here for a while. But if you want to turn to Ecclesiastes 5, you're welcome to. Or on our Southlake app, you can find it on the App Store. There are notes that you can follow along. All you got to do is go to the App Store, download search up Southlake Church, find the Southlake app, and then there are notes to help you follow along with the message. But I came across a Gallup study a few years ago, actually, and it kind of caught my eye. I kind of logged it away. I kept it with me. This Gallup study revealed, or this Gallup poll, they're a polling group, it revealed that 78% of Americans believed that crime has increased over the past year. Now, again, this was a couple years ago, so not 2025 to 2024, but when it was taken, 78% of Americans believed that crime was on the rise in America. The highest level of concern since 1993, or in 20 years. The highest level of concern for crime and safety in over 20 years. The irony is that same year the poll was taken, actual crime rates were on a 20-year low. And so while crime had dropped, broadly throughout the country, our perception of crime or our feeling of not being safe was higher than ever. Let me ask you, do you feel safer than you did 10 years ago? And not even just about, public safety or your own physical safety, but even our emotional well-being. Are you less overwhelmed than you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Most of us, I would say probably a lot of us, feel the opposite. That we feel more in danger, we feel busier, we feel more exhausted, we feel more anxious, even though we we have more conveniences in our life today in 2025 than any generation before us. We have mindfulness apps. I don't know if you have a smartwatch, like an Apple Watch, but I could never get rid of that notification that said, hey, Jonathan, you should breathe for a minute and relax. I don't know if anyone relates to that, and if it's just me, then that was probably my watch telling me to calm down. But everything in our life is built for comfort. We have life hacks, we have smart homes, everything around our life. We have cars that drive themselves now. We have, oh my gosh, we got a car that has that lane assist. So even when you start to drift off, it literally just jerks you right back into the center of the lane. Everything around our life is built for comfort, isn't it? But something inside of us still feels unsettled. Here's another stat that I had found. Anti-anxiety pills, their use has increased over 35% since 2020. And antidepressant prescriptions, get this, have increased by over 129% since 2020. And that 129% is in adolescent girls. Over 129% antidepressant prescriptions to adolescent girls increase since 2020. Whether it's real danger out there or there's this internal dissonance in here, we live in a world that feels unsafe, don't we? Many of us, and again, I can actually confidently say, I think all of us, at some point or another, have felt vulnerable. We felt overwhelmed, we felt anxious, we've felt exhausted. And Ecclesiastes, the teacher who wrote this book, this brilliant, honest, and if you've been with us the past few weeks, very unsettling book, puts its finger exactly on that feeling. Exactly on that wound of unsettledness, of vulnerability, of feeling like you don't have things together, of being overwhelmed and anxious and exhausted. And the writer identifies 3 pressure points in life where we feel most vulnerable And in the end, I believe he offers a very surprising ray of hope, a radical solution, which, to be honest, isn't common in the book of Ecclesiastes. Usually, the author just lets us wrestle with this despair and these feelings, but he offers us a solution, a hope that grounds them all. And so I'm going to go through the three vulnerabilities that the teacher kind of goes through in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, and I phrase them as questions for us. The first vulnerability is, what if God is angry with me? What if God is angry with me? Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 7. But the book of Ecclesiastes dares to ask, what is life like if we try to find meaning apart from a deep and rich relationship with the God of the Bible? And in chapter 5, the teacher invites us into a vulnerable spiritual space, into the worship place. He warns us to be cautious with our words before God, to let our words be few. When we enter the house of God, to not make rash vows. It's a warning that many of us, if we're honest, we understand these ideas deep down. But let's go ahead and read these 7 verses. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 through 7. The teacher writes this: guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Go near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools who do not know they do wrong. Do not be quick with your mouth. Do not be hasty in your heart to utter anything before God. God is in heaven and you are on earth, so let your words be few. A dream comes when there are many cares, and many words mark the speech of fools. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to fulfill it. He has no pleasure in fools. Fulfill your vow. It is better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it. Do not let your mouth lead you to sin, and do not protest the temple messenger. My vow was a mistake. Why should God be angry at what you say and destroy the work of your hands? Much dreaming and many words are meaningless. Therefore, fear God. Therefore, fear God. The Hebrew word for fear that the teacher uses here is yare, which has a bit of a double meaning to it. It's kind of a multi-layered word here. It means to be afraid. It means to be in terror. It means to be in fear. It also means to revere. It also means to be in awe. And I think, if you've been to church for any length of time, we get the revere part. We get the awe part. I think we've heard this teaching about, the fear of the Lord means to revere, to have a healthy respect, to be in awe of who he is, kind of like entering into the ocean, just this respect and awe for the power and majesty that the coast is, but also a realization that, oh my gosh, these waves are coming, right? There's power here. But what's interesting is this Hebrew word yare is used over 300 times in the Old Testament. And only 3 times is it translated as reverence. Only 3 times is it translated as awe. The rest, terror, being afraid, kind of a fear, right? The more like clear, like fear, right? And there's a healthy and an unhealthy way to be afraid of God. Because here's what's true for a lot of people. We don't just fear God in reverence, as I hope a lot of us do, but a lot of us may fear him in terror. Many of us live as if God is an angry parent whose love is conditional. And bear with me, because a lot of us, when I was studying this, I was like, not me. I've been going to church since I was 14. I understand this concept. I know he's my loving father. I know he cares for me. I know I'm the apple of his eye. I know that. But as I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, this fear actually seeps into my own being. What do we do if we think God is angry with us? And again, it might not be on the forefront of your mind, but what do we do if even maybe subconsciously we think that God is angry with us? Maybe this has happened to you. Let me give you an example just from my everyday life. This is going to be a very simple example that happens. And again, maybe this has happened to you. I like to play basketball a lot. I like to play 2 or 3 times a week. I'm out there playing basketball. I'm sweaty. I'm competitive. I'm honestly just trying not to roll an ankle. And then comes, of course, the standard small talk that, you do when you're doing an activity like that. And the question everyone asks when you're doing small talk and you're meeting someone is, so what do you do for a living? Comes up every time like clockwork. And what happens is, I'll tell them, what am I doing for a living? I'll say, okay, let me be honest. I don't always tell them what I do for a living, because what I do for a living brings up an awkward conversation, which I'm going to talk about right now, or can bring up an awkward conversation. And so what I'll say is, I'm a pastor at a local church here in West Lynn. And without fail, their response is, oh man, I'm so sorry for cussing. Like without fail. Like it's like every single time. It's like it's liturgy or something. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I said that F-bomb out there when I missed the 3. And oh my word. The other day I was with our student ministry intern, Connor. And he came to hoop with me. And when we were done, he comes up to me and he's like, Jonathan, I had no idea you were so competitive. Like, I love your competitive spirit, man. And I knew what he actually meant was, Jonathan, you're kind of mean out there. Like, why were you yelling at me? And it's because you weren't guarding the 3-point shooter when it was game. Like, you were sagging way off, and I'm yelling, up. Anyways, you gotta guard the shooter, man. There's this moment when I say, Pastor, something triggers. There's this instinctive awareness, not of me. I've matured to realize that they're not aware of me, but what they're aware of is God. They're very quickly aware of, oh my gosh, there's a spiritual side to life. And for them, when they apologize for cussing or whatever it is, right? They're not aware of just God in general. They're aware of a certain version of God. The cosmic principle from HR, right? The all-seeing referee in the sky. The divine soap in the mouth enforcer. That's what they're thinking of when they're immediately like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. They're not apologizing to me. They're apologizing to the angry God they think I represent. But that tells us something profound, doesn't it? That for many people, when God shows up, even just in conversation, if we think God is angry with us, shame immediately enters into the picture. Hiding immediately enters into the picture. Fear enters into the picture. And so does this assumption that God must be mad at me. So what do we do? How do we know that we might be believing that God is angry with us? What we do is we manage that fear. We try to, like what people do when they apologize to me, they try to tip the scales. We think that if I can just be good enough, maybe he won't be angry with me. We turn our lives into this contest, a balancing act of guilt and performance, much like that television show, The Good Life? Is that what it's called? The what? The Good Place. Thank you, Amy. Yes. Much like that show, The Good Place. And while this view of God may be more overt, maybe to people who don't attend church or don't have a personal relationship with Jesus, I think this view can seep into our own lives as well. When I was in high school, one of the required readings for me was Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. And Lee describes this moment that describes this. He describes these Lee describes these very respectful church-going ladies who meet monthly for gospel generosity. What they're doing is they're raising money for poor children in Africa because that's the right thing to do, and it is. All the while participating in horrendous racial discrimination in their own town. And that's what happens when our relationship with God is based only on fear. We manage our appearances. We manipulate obedience. We think things like, why, when calamity hits our lives or when struggle hits our lives, we think, why is this happening to me? I've been a good Christian. I've been attending church my whole life. I've done good things. God, why aren't you blessing me? Or the inverse of that is, God, why are you angry with me? Do you see how this can get into our own lives as Christians? That this idea of God might be angry with me, well, we might not overtly think about it like maybe we overtly think about it, but for some of us, it might be more of a low hum in our life that we don't realize we're operating this way. And what happens is over time, we lose intimacy with God. We end up having a limited prayer life because we only talk to God when we have to. Right? When problems are on our way. A faith that's fueled more by guilt than joy, a Christianity that feels more like performance than it does relationship. And this fear leaves us spiritually exhausted. This kind of fear keeps us stuck in our guilt, stuck in performance, stuck in shame. Vulnerability number 2 that the writer brings up is, what if the things I trust betray me? Oh, and by the way, this message is going to be, because the author writes it this way, I'm intentionally leaving out a solution because the author leaves out a solution. The solution will come at the end. So if you're feeling a little heavy burdened right now over that, we'll get there. Just hang tight. But vulnerability number 2, what if the things I trust betray me? One thing that's fun about the Bible is there are often clues the writer leaves to help us understand what we should focus on, particularly in the wisdom literature or in poetry. And there's one here that happens. There's a literary device for our English majors. There's a literary structure that happens here, and it's called a chiasm. And it's common in ancient poetry. And a chiasm is a mirroring pattern that is designed to highlight what's at the center. I think of it like a sandwich. And actually, we can throw up the chiasm that we're going to work off here. I think of it like a sandwich. We have what we're going to read here in a second is Ecclesiastes 5:13 through 14. And the big idea here is that you are not in as much control as you think you are. Later on in verse 6 through 10, the same idea comes up. And what's going to happen is you see it's color-coded here, A, B, B. B and B will have a similar idea, and it's guiding us into the center point that is kind of the heartbeat and the main idea. And so the outer layer of this chiasm is vulnerability number 2, is that you are more vulnerable than you think you are. Ecclesiastes 5:13 through 14 says this: I have seen a grievous evil under the sun, wealth hoarded to the harm of its owners, or wealth lost through some misfortune, so that when they have children, there is nothing left for them to inherit. The summary here is all sorts of things let us down, doesn't it? Money lets us down. Our savings can let us down. Authorities, judges and police, etc., let us down. But it's also making the point that we should be mindful about the fact that I don't even think we have to be mindful of it. Sometimes it's very pressing in our mind, that we are one pandemic, one banking crisis, one failure to read the small print away from financial calamity, from life ruin. We're one diagnosis away. We're one phone call away from everything screeching to a halt. And the reason why I say I don't think we need to be mindful of this exactly is I think a lot of us have lived this. A lot of us are mature enough to know this happens. And he repeats it in 6:10. He says this: whatever exists has already been named, and what humanity is has been known. No one can contend with someone who is stronger. Translation, we're not in as control as we think we are. You know, we all know that the strong will devour the weak, that the greedy will always seek self-interest. Heroes will let us down. And the teacher is making the point that we are not smart enough, that we do not have enough resources to protect ourselves from all of the external things coming our way, all of the external things that betray us, our money, our finance, or our relationships, our career, from letting us down, from disappointing us. You can save as much as you want. You can invest prudently. You can build your career strategically and still lose it all. And it might not even be because of laziness or irresponsibility, but because the world is unpredictable. We are vulnerable. As a parent of young children, this lands hard for me. I would do anything to protect my kids from pain, and as I know all of us would for our children, from hurt, from having their feelings, damaged or disappointed. And yet one thing we know in life as parents is our children will go through times when they are vulnerable. They will go through times when they get knocked down. They will go through times where we cannot protect them. And the only thing we can do is train them to have resilience so that when they encounter those moments, they will bounce back. There's no way to fully bulletproof your life. And I know all of us have walked through seasons where it feels like the hits are coming from the left and from the right and from everywhere in our life. And we know that our job, our savings, our security systems, our insurance policies, they're all good things. And we should have them, of course, but they're not ultimate things, right? And there's no way to escape it. Let me quickly move on, because I'm feeling heavy at this point. We're going to go on to the next layer of the chiasm here in vulnerability number 3. What if my emotions let me down? So we've talked about, what if God is angry with me? We've talked about the external stuff. What if the external stuff let me down? And what if the pain comes from inside? What if the phone, what if the call is coming from inside the house? Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 17 says, all their days they eat in darkness with great frustration, affliction, and anger. The point that he's trying to make here is there's nothing we can do to protect ourselves from now negative emotions from coming after us, from affecting us. We have, again, the relaxation apps. We have the mindfulness breathing. We have, all of these things, but we cannot escape the negative emotions. And the next part of that chiasm is in chapter 6. God gives some people wealth, possessions, and honor so that they lack nothing their hearts desire. How awesome, huh? But God does not grant them the ability to enjoy them. And here's the tragedy. We can have everything and still feel empty. I don't think I have this written down, or I don't have this on the screen, but in this chapter, in chapter 6, the teacher writes about this concept strongly, and about when our emotions aren't in sync with the life that we have, that everything in our life may feel like it's going well, but why is there this pain in my heart? Why is there this ache in my soul? What happens when our emotions aren't in sync? And the writer says that that's an evil that weighs heavily on mankind. And we've seen this, right? We've gotten the promotion, and it didn't give us that everlasting peace. We moved to a new city, wanting a new fix, wanting a new start, but it doesn't fix our loneliness. The new house that you got, it felt good for 3 weeks, but then the dishwasher broke. The neighbors started a garage band, and you realized that open floor plan that you really wanted was just code for no privacy, right? What do we do when our emotions don't sync with our lives? And again, for all of us, especially for us that are older, a little more mature, we get this more than anybody. We're smart enough to know that the next salary threshold, that won't make any difference for your happiness. We've moved enough times. You get the buzz, the novelty of starting something fresh, but it just grows fainter and fainter every time you do it. As we grow older, we start to realize no external thing can guarantee your internal joy. The novelty wears off, the new quickly becomes normal, and our emotions don't always match our blessings. So what do we do when our emotional life becomes vulnerable? Let me guess the cultural answer that many of us have tried. This is, to answer these solutions, the world offers, to answer these problems, the world has an answer for it. And a lot of us have tried it. Maybe we're trying it now. It's to stay busy. It's to fill the calendar. It's to grind harder, to hustle better, wake up earlier, push through, don't stop, don't slow down, keep going, keep producing, keep performing, reach that next level, find your relational person, keep pretending. But has that worked? Has it delivered what it promised? Has it made you feel safe? Has it made you feel secure, content, or just tired? When was the last time you didn't feel exhausted? When was the last time when someone has asked you, how are you? Like, how's it going? And you didn't answer with, busy, man, tired, hanging in there, getting through. When was the last time that you sat still and didn't feel guilty about it? Kind of taking a breath and, oh my gosh, I've got to mow the lawn, I've got to do this, that, and X, Y, and Z. We used to believe that if we worked hard enough, we'd finally arrive. That if we just stayed busy enough, we could push down those feelings, push down the anxiety, push down the depression. We could outrun it. We could outrun the doubt. We could outrun the fear and the shame. But it's a lie. Because no matter how fast we run, we're never done. There's always a next level. There's always more to earn. There's always another fix. There's always more fear. In this book called The Burnout Society by a Japanese, I think, philosopher, Byung-Chul Han, he writes this: The exhausted, depressive achievement subject grinds itself down, so to speak. It is tired, exhausted by itself, and at war with itself. Entirely incapable of stepping outward, of standing outside itself, of relying on the other, on the world. It locks its jaws on itself. Paradoxically, this leads the self to hollow and empty out. It wears itself out in a rat race. It runs against itself. I know many of us feel that way. And if you don't feel that way in this moment, I know many of us have felt that way. Many of us will feel this way. This is the modern self. We're both master and we're slave. We're both the driver and the exhausted engine. And this is what it can honestly look like. Just like that. Just like that. And it's not working. This is the false promise of busyness, that you do enough, you'll feel enough. But it never delivers, does it? Because it's not a solution, it's a trap. The real solution is the gift of contentment. The real solution is in the center of this chiasm. And you can put up the final chiasm here. In Ecclesiastes 5:18-20, the author leads us skillfully straight to the center of what he's trying to communicate. The gift of contentment comes from God and God alone. Let me read 18-20. It says this: "This is what I have observed to be good, that it is appropriate for a person to eat, to drink, and to find satisfaction in their toilsome labor under the sun during the few days of life God has given them, for this is their lot. Moreover, when God gives someone wealth and possessions and the ability to enjoy them, to accept their lot and be happy in their toil, this is a gift of God. They seldom reflect on the days of their life," or another way to put that is they seldom reflect on the hardships and the toil that they're going through, because God keeps them occupied. Not with busyness, God keeps them occupied with gladness of heart. In other words, contentment is not earned, contentment is a gift. And that gift comes not from striving, but from God himself. And for us, on this side of the cross, we know so much more about this gift of contentment, don't we? We know so much more about the gift of God than the writer of Ecclesiastes could ever dream about. Because on this side of the cross, that gift has a name, and his name is Jesus. Jesus offers rest to the spiritually exhausted. He models how to trust when others betray us. He endured that internal emotional sorrow and strife and abandonment and still obeyed and still radiated love. Jesus faced all three of these vulnerabilities and overcame them on our behalf. You ever feel afraid of God's anger? Jesus absorbs it. The teacher warns us not to make rash vows, right? Why? Because God is holy. His justice is real. Like, oh no, be careful. And many of us live with that haunting question. Oh, is God angry with me? The cross is your answer. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says, God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Jesus on the cross bore the wrath that we fear. He didn't just die for our sins, he absorbed all the righteous anger of a holy God. So when God looks at you now, he doesn't see your striving, he doesn't see your failure, he doesn't see your shortcomings, he sees Jesus. Jesus absorbs that for us. So the God who sometimes we might feel terrified by is now our Father, running to you with open arms. You don't have to make vows to appease him. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to perform to earn him. Jesus performed perfectly on your behalf. Betrayed? Are you feeling the second vulnerability? Are you feeling betrayed by people or the things you trust? Jesus walks with you through it and was betrayed himself. In Ecclesiastes, we see people, losing due to injustice. They're losing because of a misfortune. They're losing because of betrayal. And of course, that resonates because we've all been hurt. We all have the scars to prove that has happened in our life, that we've been betrayed by friends and family and the people we trust. Jesus knows that pain. He was betrayed by one of his closest friends. He was abandoned by one of his closest friends. He was rejected by the crowds who shouted, "Hosanna!" and then crucified him a week later. He was mocked, misunderstood, and falsely accused, and yet he kept loving. He forgave even as he hung on the cross. So when people hurt you, when life unravels through maybe no fault of your own, oh, Jesus isn't far off. He's the wounded healer. He's walking with you. He's helping you carry the grief without letting it harden your heart. Are you feeling betrayed by your own emotions? Jesus felt it too. Are you feeling that internal dissonance? Jesus was right there too. Jesus knows the struggle. Where do we see it? In the Garden of Gethsemane. On the night before the cross, Jesus said, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." He sweats blood. He asks the Father to take this from him. He didn't feel emotionally strong in that moment. He felt crushed, and yet he trusted. Not my will, but your will be done. Jesus didn't need perfect emotions to obey perfectly, and neither do you. He meets us in the weakness. He understands. He's patient. He's kind. And this is where we'll close. And band, you guys can come up as we'll worship and take communion here in a second. So even if you're in this place where contentment feels far off, know that Jesus is near. And he gives us this invitation to every vulnerable person that will listen. He says this in Matthew 11, 28 through 30. Are you tired? Are you worn out? Are you burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. This is my favorite part of this passage. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Following Jesus doesn't remove these vulnerabilities. And we know that. We know that. But what it does is it anchors you to the one who is unshakable. He's not angry. He's already given you grace. He's not surprised. He knows the weakness that's coming from the external weakness or the external threats coming in. He's not far off. He's with you, and he is rest. And that's the invitation. Not to strive harder, not to fake joy, things are going good, not to suppress your fear, but to come vulnerable, to come tired, to come unsafe. However you're feeling in this moment, Jesus invites you to come. And I'll show you how to take a real rest and find rest in the only one who is truly safe. So what do we do when the world feels unsafe around us? We stop striving to save ourselves. We stop pretending like we have any control. We receive contentment that is not something we earn, but as something given by grace. We trust Jesus, and he will keep you occupied with a gladness of heart. Let's go ahead and pray before we continue to worship together. Father, that's my prayer, that's our prayer this morning, is that you would give us a real rest. Many of us feel like that hamster on the wheel right now, that we're just spinning around, working, and nothing is happening. We still feel the internal struggle. We still feel the threats from outside. We might even feel threatened in the presence of you, God. But we know that you are grace. We know that you are here, and we receive the invitation to come to you here and now. Father, I pray that your word, through the teacher in Ecclesiastes and through Jesus in Matthew, would resonate in our hearts here and now. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Why don't we all stand as we continue to worship together?